What if you could remember anything at any time and never forget? The bad news is this isn't really possible. But I do bring some good news as well. You see, the average memory is more powerful than most people could ever imagine. Hi everybody, my name is Josh McCartney, and I know a thing or two about memory. And today I'm not really here to talk to you about how to unlock the power of your average memory. Rather, I'm here to try and demonstrate to you what's possible in around 15 minutes or so. So please wish me luck. I'd like to start with a simple test. It's one that's been the focus of hundreds of research studies dating back as far as the 1960s. And it's called the picture recognition test. And all I want you to do is look at the following 30 images and try your best to memorize all 30 of them in 30 seconds. You ready? Let's go. Do you think you can memorize all of those 30 and recall them without issue? Probably not, right? So what I'm going to do now is going to show you 30 images you have seen, paired with 30 images you haven't seen, and I just want you to think, which one do I know? Are you ready? Let's go. So if you thought you had a bad memory, I think you just proved yourself wrong, right? But life isn't really about recognizing pictures when prompted. And even though in order to recognize something, it must be stored in the memory in the first place, but there's still quite a big difference when it comes to recognition versus recall. You see, recognition is when you're giving a cue or a hint to be able to jog your memory for the correct information. But recall is when you can retrieve the information from your mind without the use of external cues. And we'll come back to that in just a moment, but first, here's a quick and simple definition of memory. Memory refers to taking information from the world around us, processing it, storing it, and then later recalling it. And there are three main processes that are involved in this. Step number one is encoding. Step number next is storage. And step number final is retrieval. So encoding refers to the processing of information through our sensory inputs, so our visual, auditory, kinesthetic, etc., into a form that our brain can actually cope with. So just imagine you're a cave woman and you see a watering hole, okay? The second stage is storage. Now, storage refers to maintaining that information over time, and then the third stage is retrieval. This refers to accessing the information when you need it. So imagine you're a thirsty cave lady, and you remember there's a watering hole just 2 bushes that way, you take a left, swing it right around the rocks, and you're right there. So coming back to the picture recognition test, in terms of the memory process, you were able to encode that information really, really, really quickly. But when it came to recalling it, you needed a little bit of extra help. And almost all memory techniques involve creating recognizable cues inside your mind that you can use to remember stuff, which is what I'm going to try to teach you how to do today. And it's much easier than you think. Some of my students would say it's like having mental cheat sheets that you can take with you into your exams. So I'm going to teach you 5 separate ways in order to remember more, okay? The first one is going to be focus. Do you guys forget where you put your phone or your keys or your wallet? Yeah? Well, if you do, you have a terrible memory, and I can't help you. Just jokes. Here's what's probably happening. Maybe you're on TikTok looking at cute cat videos, or maybe your mind is preoccupied with the argument you had earlier that day. Either way, where you place that item never made it into your memory because you weren't paying attention. Here's another example. Maybe you're reading a book and your mind wanders and you didn't remember anything. So, the main point is, the first and most basic ingredient of the memory process is focus and attention. And distractions that occur while trying to remember stuff can really get in the way of encoding memories. But luckily, there's a really easy way to be able to guide our attention back, and that is called focus. Okay? Memory techniques are like little focus engines. If you ever want focus, just use one. So the second is imagination. And when anything becomes predictable or boring, it can be generally very difficult to pay attention to. And one of the easiest ways to make anything interesting is by using the power of imagination. So many studies have shown that most people can only remember between 4 and 7 words, but in no particular order. But let's try this. I'm going to give you 17 different words. I want you to remember all of them, okay? I'm going to interweave them into a story, and I want you to pay close attention and just use the power of your imagination. And if you have a bad imagination, I just want you to pretend you have a good one for a few minutes, all right? Cool. So we're going to use none other than our environmental activist, Greta Thunberg. There we go. I want you to imagine Greta walks into a restaurant and she's carrying wads of cash. She's got so much money to spend, it's crazy. And she goes to the counter and she orders a burger. And so the burger comes in. And it's obviously a vegan burger, of course, you know. She goes to grab a bite of the burger, and as she goes to do that, they hand her a med kit. Confused as to why they've handed it to her. She didn't order that, but anyway, she's intrigued. She opens it up, and inside the med kit is a comic book. And she wants to, you know, read the comic book. Why not? It's been handed it. So she opens it up, and it's her favorite action hero, Wonder Woman. So she starts to flip through the pages of the Wonder Woman comic, and right out of nowhere, Wonder Woman throws a water balloon right into Greta's face. Now she's soaking wet and confused. She doesn't know, she just wanted her burger, guys, come on. And so she's confused, she's wet, she wants to dry off, so she goes to the bathroom. And instead of finding a bathroom, she finds a massive nuclear reactor. Okay, now she wants to inspect what's going on, you know, clean energy and everything. So she puts on her favorite business suit and hard hat, and now she is fashionably ready to go inspect this nuclear reactor. So she starts climbing up a ladder on the side of the nuclear reactor. She starts climbing the ladder, and as she gets to the top and she sees over, there's something she wasn't expecting. It's a city of ants, and they're eating all of the restaurant's leftover food. Why? And she wants to know how much leftover food there actually is. So she walks into the kitchen, and she sees a polar bear eating a fish while riding a goat. It is the most majestic thing she's ever seen in her life. So she tells everybody stop, and she pulls out a police badge. And then she hands over a wedding ring to the polar bear and asks him to marry her. Of course, the polar bear said yes, okay. Now, that might not be the most riveting tale you've ever heard in your life. Maybe it was, I don't know. But the point is, I'm willing to bet you can remember between 10 to 17 of those items in the right order. Most people can in their first attempt, and here's why. Most of us don't realize that we're using a brain that was designed to hunt for woolly mammoths and to find berries. But we're using it for abstract thinking, for working out things like the mathematics of a black hole. And abstract concepts might seem not very relevant to the brain, so it won't put in a whole lot of effort to use its finite resources of precious energy to prioritize that in the memory process. So did you know there's only a handful of people around the entire world that have memorized the first 20,000 digits of pi? But countless others that have memorized Shakespeare's Hamlet with around 50,000 letters. So at the end of the day, numbers and letters are just abstract pieces of information. But if you're able to encode that information to something more meaningful through the power of your imagination or a story, you can start to harness the power of your awesome memory. So how long do you think it'd take you to remember this sentence? Well, if you do, or if you did, then congratulations, you've memorized the first 24 digits of pi. You guys are awesome. And it's by using a technique known as the major method. It's not as scary as it looks, and it doesn't take that long to get good at, don't worry. All we do is we turn numbers into letters, we turn those letters into words, and then we've turned that into a story. It's easier to remember. And remember those 17 words that I spoke about before that you memorized? Well, you've unknowingly memorized the entire United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals by basic association. So the first goal is to have zero poverty. So for me, poverty is the absence of money, so imagine that. Zero hunger, I could go for a burger when I'm hungry. And good health and well-being is a med kit. Okay? So just by power of your magic imagination. Now, the next stage is location. If you can learn a memory technique that increases your ability to organize information, it can also improve your ability to recall information. Things like numbers, dates, facts, abstract ideas, procedures, definitions, foreign languages, pretty much anything. It's kind of like having a really well-organized filing cabinet. You just go through the drawer, you find the individual folder and label, and you pull it out, and easy peasy, you got the information. So I want to take you through a little process really quickly to just show you. So we're going to say 5 locations in this room. Number 1 is the audience, where you're sitting. In between the stage is number 2. Number 3 is the stage. Number 4 is the wall, and number 5 is the door. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, I want you to imagine, on top of the audience, you guys, money is just raining down. Coins, notes, all of it. It's hitting you in the head, maybe it hurts. Somebody goes to run along the stage and they trip over a bed of burgers and it's all squishy when they fall down. They hop onto here and this entire thing is a medicine kit and it has a little plus symbol on the red carpet. The wall is the biggest comic book you've ever seen in your life. And at the door, Wonder Woman is telling you that the TEDx talk isn't over yet, so get back to your seat. Okay? So as you can see, the memory palace technique allows you to be able to create recognizable cues inside your mind to be able to retrieve information when you want to. It's in the form of visual labels. Okay? And generally speaking, we remember emotionally charged events much better than boring ones. So if something significant happens to charge powerful emotions, the brain pays attention. So there it is. Next time you try to remember something boring, try to find ridiculous connections in an order that it's easy to recall, just like the Greta story. And your brain will begin to come up with its own natural associations to make that information easier to commit to memory. Just go with those. Mine are a little bit weird and a little bit funny because I'm a little bit weird and not really that funny, so that's what my brain just does. And if you're ever feeling emotionally overwhelmed by trying to memorize stuff, it probably means you're trying to do too much at once. So consider this. If you can combine multiple items or ideas into a single thought or a single word, you can make it much easier and much quicker to remember. Truly groundbreaking stuff, Josh, I know, trust me. But consider this. You can use the technique known as chunking to be able to combine multiple ideas into a single chunk. So imagine you have a grocery list, and on your list you have milk, bread, beef, butter, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles. Well, instead of trying to remember 8 separate items, you can remember just 2, milk and burger. Because you know what goes into easily making a burger, you can combine 7 of those items down into 1, in this case, burger. And you can also use the chunking technique for completely unrelated facts, numbers, information, and items with a little bit of imagination and the story method. And just like our muscles, if we don't use our brains, we can begin to lose some of their abilities. And same goes with learning new information. So back in the late 1880s, there was a psychologist called Hermann Ebbinghaus. He became the first person to systematically tackle the analysis of memory. And he plotted his findings onto a graph that we now know as the forgetting curve. And it shows within as little as 20 minutes, you forget around 40% of the information that you've learned. Within a day, around 70%. Within a week, well, forget it. And one of the easiest ways to offset this is to recall the information in increasing intervals of time. This is a technique known as spaced repetition. So what that would look like is you remember the main key points of this talk an hour or 2 later, a day later, maybe a few days after that, a week after that, a month after that, and congratulations, you've strengthened the connections of that memory. You might be thinking it seems like a lot of work, Josh, but remember this. It takes less time and less effort to be able to recall in increasing intervals of time than it does to forget it and need to relearn it completely. Now, as you may have seen from this talk, not all memories are created equal, which is great because it means there are things you can do to be able to help them last longer. And if you'd like a way to remember them, I'm going to leave you with one final technique. An acronym that spells FILES. So F is for focus. Your focus directs your attention and in turn your ability to remember. I is for imagination. Your imagination and creativity are literally the only things that separate us from robots. It helps us to be able to cope with change, to solve problems, and to plan our future. L is for location. It's the most powerful tool to store and organize information. E is for emotion. Emotions, both negative and positively charged, force your brain to pay attention. And S is for spaced repetition. Just like our muscles, the connections in our brain that strengthen and reinforce memories also experience atrophy. So, in conclusion, memory is essential for learning. It helps us to be able to store and retrieve our newly acquired knowledge. The more that we can improve our ability to retain knowledge, the more we can build a better developed understanding of the world. And this also helps us to adapt, not if, but when circumstances change. By the way, that's happening more and more these days. My name is Josh McCartney, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to what I have to say.